Oh man, you guys will freak out when you see what's happening here. It might not seem like it at first glance, but if you look closely, an epic and tense ant battle is unfolding here over a giant cup of sweet jelly. Most of the ants you see here are fire ants who are defending this jelly cup through various incredible tactics, but trying valiantly to penetrate the droves of fire ants to steal some of the sweet goods are black crazy ants. Look up there. There's one moving in to have a drink. And another. And a third. But their taste is only momentary as nearby fire ants discover their presence and chase them off. The fire ants are aggressive, but the black crazy ants have speed on their side. Guys, the way this all ends is pretty great. So, just sit back and enjoy watching how this intense ant battle over food unfolds. And just a hint, the ending of this video will surprise you and may get you shouting at your screen. Who will end up winning over this sudden battle between black crazy ants and fire ants? It's time to find out, here on the AntsCanada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. AC family, another ant war. This ant battle, however, is a little different, and you'll see what I mean later in the video. But do stay tuned until the end, as I will be needing your help asking you a very important question regarding the team of ants that end up losing in this black crazy ant versus fire ant battle. And again, you will want to see a certain surprise reveal that I have to show you. So do stay tuned to the very end for all of that coming up. Meanwhile, let's go back to how this intense ant altercation started. It all began here. Fire Alley, the terrarium home of my pet fire ant colony named the Crimson Knights. At one of their ant hills, workers were busy going about their routine house chores, cleaning and building. It's their feeding time, and they're about to get a nice fat roach. You'll love the fire ant swarm that emerges at every feeding. Just watch. The first few ants in the area discover the roach and begin either trying to sting it or spreading pheromones throughout the area to sound the alarm and inform the rest of the colony that a huge roach carcass had just dropped in from the skies. Slowly at first, ants begin to take notice, but as soon as news begins to reach the colony, watch how they emerge from their nest hole. Here they come now. In no time, the scene is just covered with excited and hungry fire ants. I've always loved feeding fire ants because for me, they create some of the most impressive swarms in the ant world at feeding time. Our fire ant colony here, the Crimson Knights, have increased greatly in size. Insane to imagine that just a few months ago, we just had a newly captured queen ant from nuptial flight in a test tube. The humble beginnings of our Crimson Knights. Oh, speaking of which, real quick before I forget, it's the start of ant nuptial flight season again in North America and the Northern Hemisphere. Yay! So be sure to visit AntsCanada.com so you're completely ready with your ant farm starter kit and equipment in case you find a queen ant in your yard. I'd love for you guys to join me in keeping ants. We ship worldwide and also have a useful ant keeping handbook to give you helpful tips to grow your ant colony into a booming ant army. Speaking of which, guys, check this out. You'll love this. Let me show you what the colony looks like below ground in their nest, removing the black cover of their test tube home. The fire ants run energetically through the various tunnels and chambers they've created within the digging medium from top to bottom. I love watching the ants constantly rearranging their brood piles, but in this case, I believe they're startled by the sudden removal of the cover and presence of light, so they're trying to quickly hide the brood from our view. Here's another brood room of pupae and mature larvae. The fire ants have done an excellent job at constructing effective tunnels and chambers for the colony to reside in. The chambers run pretty deep into the test tube at various places, and their ever-changing nest architecture was astounding. There was still plenty of space for the colony to expand, as the colony continues to get bigger and bigger. I currently don't see the queen fire ant, our crimson queen, but I know she's in here because she's the one laying all the eggs, and this brood pile continues to grow and grow every time I peek inside to look. But as successful as this colony appears to be so far, little do these fire ants know they're about to undergo one of the biggest survival tests of their lives, going head-to-head with competition. For creeping in from the outskirts of their feeding site lay some uninvited guests. Black crazy ants, perhaps one of the fire ants' most formidable enemies in the wild, have broken into Fire Alley, scrambling about like thieves, seeking to loot any resource they can. Where did these black crazy ants come from? Well, as you may have seen in a previous video, these black crazy ants have been a complete nuisance over the past 2 weeks now in my ant room. Believe it or not, they are a wild colony that broke into my home from the outside. I'm not too alarmed because here in the tropics, it's a simple accepted fact that insects will inevitably break into your home through unforeseen spaces in windows, drains, cracks in the walls, etc. Though I do everything in my power to keep wild outside ants from invading my ant room, they still sometimes decide to stick around, and black crazy ants, being a nomadic species, often move in when they feel like there's enough food, and move out when they feel they can't find any, or if they feel the space is unfavorable. Lately, these black crazy ants have been obsessed with Fire Alley for some reason, carrying tons of grains of sand from the terrarium and bringing it to the other end of my counter, where another ant colony of mine, a colony of Dracula ants, inside an AC ant tower, were living. At the time, I couldn't figure out why on earth the ants were doing this, but as you will see later, the black crazy ants had plans up their sleeves. Anyway, I was able to shoo away the black crazy ant invaders from Fire Alley by adding digging medium from one of my bigger ant colonies and spreading it all over the terrarium, fooling the black crazy ants into thinking they were invading a larger ant colony's space. So they scrammed in fear of being outnumbered. But now, as you can see, it was a temporary solution. Because after the big ant colony's pheromones dissipated, the black crazy ants were back, still mining their gravel bits. And now, as our crimson knights were feasting on their roach, I knew the black crazy ant trespassers could potentially soon turn their eye on a new prize. This could all turn into a fierce competition for resources. So far it seemed the black crazy ants weren't posing too much of a problem for the fire ants, and judging from the size of the fire ant swarm, I wasn't too worried yet. So I decided not to take any action and intervene despite the close proximity of both colonies, and instead just chose to keep a close eye on them in case a full-out ant war were to break out. In fact, I also wanted to see if the two ant colonies would stay out of each other's way. This would be a cool discovery to know if two species could share a space amicably for a short period of time. I also wanted to figure out why the black crazy ants were even here and what they were doing with the gravel they were mining from the terrarium. I didn't know it at the time, but all the answers to my questions were about to be answered. The next day, the Crimson Knights... Oops, my bad. The Crimson Knights were scheduled to have their sugar source, a cup of sweet jelly, all ants' favorite carb. I placed it carefully on their rock platform. It didn't take long for the ants to discover it. This was actually the first time these ants have ever tried this flavor of sweet jelly, honeydew. And I can confirm, because yes, I've tasted it, that it's delicious. A mini crowd began to gather, and soon word made its way back to the colony, which summoned the horde. Man, I swear I just love watching fire ants swarm. Truly one of the best events in ant keeping to witness. And my, did the ants sure love this jelly. They began slurping the goods, filling up their social stomachs, kinda like their internal lunchboxes, and once completely full, headed back to the colony to dispose of the sweet collection. But little did the Crimson Knights know, the uninvited tenants, who weren't paying rent, had also taken notice of the sweet, delectable jelly cup the fire ants were working on. One of the fire ants discovered one of the black crazy ants drawing too close for comfort and ran back to the colony to inform them that the trespassers were starting to push closer. More and more black crazy ants began to circle the area around the jelly cup, trying to gauge how they were going to have a taste of the jelly, which the fire ants were now claiming as their property. But the black crazy ants were flimsy and weak compared to the fire ants. But as mentioned, the thing they did have the upper hand on over their fire ant opponents was speed. Zoom! My heart raced as I watched wide-eyed as the black crazy ants strategically tested for weak areas of the fire ant pheromones and trails where they could quickly pass through safely. This was not going to be easy for the black crazy ants, but they were driven by hunger now, and sweets are definitely a favorite for black crazies. I couldn't believe how determined the black crazy ants looked. Suddenly, my heart jumped into my throat as a brave black crazy ant dared to step up to the jelly cup, despite fire ants being all around. Oh, and with a blink of an eye, it was out of there. Too dangerous. Man, these black crazy ants are little speedsters. The Crimson Knights were determined to defend this delectable prized possession and weren't willing to share, as this jelly cup could feed their colony for days and help them grow bigger and more powerful. But the black crazy ants were brave and weren't afraid of the close proximity with their fiery counterparts. They could easily run circles around the fire ants, it seemed. I wondered how this competition over the jelly cup would play out. The Crimson Knights, determined to work as quickly and effectively as possible, raced back to their nest with full social stomachs, trying to get the job done before the black crazy ants came up with a plan to steal the jelly. For now, the fire ants chased any approaching black crazies away, on sight. But this jelly cup was huge, and there were only so much fire ants to process the jelly. So I was curious to know how the fire ants would deal with more and more black crazy ants approaching. In fact, I had no idea how big the black crazy ant colony was, as it only seemed like under 100 black crazies were around at the moment. But in my mind, if enough black crazy ants arrived to steal the jelly, they just might be able to overwhelm the fire ants. I didn't know, but I decided to simply watch the scene unfold, since so far, our pet fire ants seem to have the situation under control. The black crazies couldn't do much but race around in envious hunger. I decided to come back in a few hours to check up on the scene. But what I saw when I came back was quite surprising. A barrier! The Crimson Knights had decided it was time to trump the black crazy ants and build a wall to keep the trespassers away from their goods. I should have seen this coming. Look at how eager and fast the fire ants were working too. They knew this wall needed to be built ASAP, as the black crazy ants were still working on pressing in. Look at how fast they're moving. I bet they knew the black crazy ants were managing to take quick slurps now from the jelly. And to add to the urgency, I had to feed the colony their nightly roach. So now the ants were dealing with 2 food items that could be potentially stolen by the black crazy ants. It actually amazed me to see how the Crimson Knights were tackling this situation. They knew that if they could cover the majority of the exposed jelly, they wouldn't need as many ants to defend the jelly from the black crazies. So far, the idea seemed to be working, as I caught the fire ants keeping the black crazy ants on their toes as they tried to sneak in little bites of jelly, but failed. Regardless, The black crazy ants and their entire colony had now been informed of the jelly cup and were not about to give up just yet. Now guys, let's take a few moments to watch how all of this unfolds, where the fire ants continue to fortify the barrier covering their jelly and the black crazy ants relentlessly pushing in to have a taste of the jelly. The scene was quite intense. As you can see, it seemed the black crazy ant's strategy was to simply speed onto the jelly gravel wall and take rapid licks of the sweet jelly stuck to the rocks and collect the sweet goods that way. It seemed to be working well. The black crazy ants, though often coming in actual contact with the fire ants, made full use of their ultra speed to their advantage to zip out of danger as soon as contact was made with the fire ants. It was at this time that I, as the ultimate guardian and keeper of our Crimson Knights, decided to intervene and knew I had to help our Crimson Knights win this war. They were, after all, our pets. So I knew the black crazy ants had to be coming from somewhere, specifically a nesting site. I decided to go back to the Dracula ant tower, which I placed high up to keep away from the black crazy ants. But AC family, guess what I finally noticed when I took a closer look at the ant tower? I was about to make a pretty crazy discovery. Have a look. Do you see it? There, in the hydration tub of the AC ant tower, the makeshift nest of the black crazy ants was the hydration tub of the Dracula ants formicarium. Look at the brood and all the ants. I couldn't believe it. And they were entering and exiting through this opening where I usually inject water to hydrate the nest. Suddenly, it all made sense. The black crazies were probably mining grains of sand because they wanted to further build a nest wall around this opening. I hadn't noticed the black crazy ants were actually nesting inside the ant tower's hydration tub. That's why the ants were so preoccupied with gathering gravel from Fire Alley, as they felt it was a good home building material. Oh, okay. Wow. All right. The answer was simple. Block. And just like that, the colony was trapped. And we now have a small black crazy ant colony in our possession. Isn't that awesome? Now at the start of the video, I mentioned I'd be needing your help regarding the losing team, which will now be the black crazy ants. Because I've just cut them off from doing any further harm or trespassing into Fire Alley. And I'd be asking you a very important question. And it's this. What should we do with this black crazy ant colony? Should we keep them? Should we euthanize them humanely by putting them in the freezer? Let me know what you feel the fate of these black crazy ants should be by leaving your opinions in the comments. In the end, I was happy to know that our fire ants didn't have to deal with our black crazy ant intruders any longer, and that they could continue to grow within Fire Alley in peace. But Fire Alley is not the Crimson Knights' permanent home, as I'm working on some pretty amazing plans for their next home kingdom that I am certain will blow your minds. So, if you haven't yet, do hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with our Crimson Knights, as well as our black crazy ants, if you guys decide we should keep them. And I also hope you could kindly remember to hit the like button, as it really helps a lot to let YouTube know you enjoy these ant videos and that they're worth sharing to new audiences. Thank you so much guys for watching today and supporting the ants. It's Ant Love for... Oh wait, hang on. I almost forgot. At the start of the video, I also mentioned there would be a surprise reveal. So we're beginning to hit the rainy season now where I live, and thus a multitude of ant species are starting to have their nuptial flights in droves. Now if you've been following the channel for a while, you may recall a very special ant species that we found in my backyard. A few years back, a cute red and black ant species with little spines, light-colored fuzz, and adorable heart-shaped gasters. These ants were of particular scientific significance because we actually were the very first in the world to discover that they existed in my country. We were mind-blown that we had made a novel scientific discovery in the world of myrmecology, and initially called the ant species 555. Since it was the 555th ant species to be geographically documented in my country, we also dreamed that one day we would find a queen of species 555 and attempt to keep it. Well, AC family, you won't believe this, but as I was walking through my yard this afternoon, I happened to find this beauty. AC family, I'm proud to present our newest queen ant, species 555. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.